The forest swastika, sometimes an idea can literally take root in the ground among trees that have grown for decades. In the 1990s, strange pine plantings were discovered in Germany for the first time, so that in the fall, when the leaves on the neighboring trees fell, the crowns remained green and formed a swastika. Plantings were found in at least 4 locations. The most famous one is near Uckermark in the north of the country, where the trees were planted in the 1930s. There are 140 spruces. They form a perfect Nazi emblem, visible only from above. From a helicopter, it's just a forest, yet it's a symbol of ancient power. What struck me wasn't the idea, but the method. This isn't graffiti or a wall drawing. It's an engineering project to plant a lasting forest. So in 60 years, people from above will know whose land this is. After Germany reunified, these areas started being cut down. They were afraid that fans would go there, that it would become a place of power for those who believe it's still not over. There's an irony in that. Everything they tried to erase just keeps coming back, even literally. The Nazis created symbols not for their contemporaries, but for future generations, so that their cult would continue to live on, even if nothing remained. No flag, no borders, only the forest. The Great Bell of Dhammazedi. The Great Bell of Dhammazedi is considered the largest bell ever made. It was cast in 1484 by order of King Yanma Dhammazedi and installed at the famous pagoda. Shwedagon in Yangon is one of the most sacred places for Buddhists in the country. Historical records show the bell weighed over 290 tons, making it a record holder, but its fate was tragic. In 1608, Portuguese mercenary Felipe de Brito seized Yangon and tried to take the bell to melt for weapons. While moving it across the Bago River, he misjudged the weight, causing the bell to capsize the barge and sink. It's never been found since. Despite numerous attempts, today the Great Bell of Dhammazedi remains part of the legends and national pride of Myanmar. Its story reminds us how culture, spirituality, and greed can merge in one artifact, whose fate remains a mystery today. Amulet from space. Turkish archaeologists have discovered an amulet made of meteoritic iron that is 4,700 years old. This artifact, found in an early Bronze Age burial in Asia Minor, is considered the oldest such find in the region, with an exact dating. The amulet was found in the Kisik-Servi burial ground in southwestern Turkey. The item was found in a pythos, a large clay vessel used for burial. To date, the earliest recognized artifacts made from meteoritic iron are from Egypt, found near the settlement of El Girze, and dated to 3,300 before Christ. Finds from the Orenburg region in Russia are also known, where archaeologists discovered a knife, a chisel, and an adze plane in a Yamnaya culture burial mound, dating to 2,700 before Christ. Excavations in Kisik-Servi uncovered the amulet and burials with rich funerary items, showing the deceased's high status. Analyses confirmed that the iron of the amulet is indeed of meteoritic origin, which further increases its historical and scientific value. An unfinished antediluvian structure. In the mysterious valleys of Lebanon lies Baalbek, a city that holds the secrets of ancient times. A recently discovered structure at this site has added new information, confirming the unique significance of Baalbek for archaeology and world culture. The megalithic architecture of Baalbek puzzled scientists for years. The construction methods and reasons for building such massive structures were unique, but the latest discovery provides new ways to interpret and understand ancient civilizations. In the Bekaa Valley, it's known for its key role in the Hellenistic and Roman periods. After Alexander the Great's conquest, the city changed greatly, serving as a bridge between Eastern and Western cultures. Greek culture left its mark on the architecture and art of Baalbek, which can be seen in the stylistic features of its buildings. The Romans further enhanced its role as a religious and cultural center by building grand temples and public structures. The most famous structures are the temples dedicated to Jupiter, Venus, and Bacchus. These temples are known not only for their magnificence, but also for the technical achievements embodied in their construction. A key feature is the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, a massive 1,000-ton megalith that was never used in the temple's final construction. The 2014 quarry discovery only heightened the mysteries of these ancient construction methods. The findings showed that ancient builders used technologies ahead of their time, which raises questions about the origin and spread of ancient engineering knowledge. Comparing Baalbek with other ancient wonders, such as Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids, we can notice common features in logistical and engineering approaches. For example, transporting huge stones for Stonehenge or building the pyramids in Giza required not only physical resources but also advanced planning and astronomical knowledge. Modern archaeological methods such as ground-penetrating radar studies and 3D scanning are opening new horizons in the study of ancient technologies. The burial in the Katyn forest. The discovery of mass graves in the Katyn forest near Smolensk, which still causes a lot of controversy in Russia. In 1943, German troops advancing on the Soviet Union discovered numerous graves of Polish officers. The Soviet Union denied its involvement, claiming that the Nazis were to blame for everything. According to the official version of Western countries, in 1940, by order of the highest leadership of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, thousands of Polish officers, police officers, scientists, and public figures who had been taken prisoner during the Soviet invasion of Poland were executed. In September 1939, these mass killings carried out by the People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs became known as the Katyn Massacre. This discovery sparked international outcry and became key evidence in accusing the Stalinist regime of war crimes. For Poland, Katyn became a symbol of national tragedy and betrayal by the Soviet government, whom they had previously considered allies. However, not everything is clear-cut. There is also another opinion supported by documents regarding this tragic event. In 1943, when the Nazis suffered defeat in the Battle of Stalingrad, the leadership of the Third Reich, particularly its powerful propaganda machine, led by Goebbels, wanted to create internal discord. The Nazis themselves executed the Polish officers and then supposedly discovered them. This was done to point to Stalin's repressions and to sow discord among the Allies. Some Polish journalists doubted the Nazis and launched their own investigation. Some of the documents confirming the Nazis' crimes were prepared for the Nuremberg Tribunal, where the Nazis were tried. However, under strange circumstances, everyone who tried in any way to whitewash Stalin's regime at that time began to die. Surprisingly, documents vanished, along with everyone involved in the tragedy's investigation. Nevertheless, the Nuremberg International Military Tribunal charged Hermann Göring and Alfred Jodl, who was acting as chief of the Wehrmacht High Command, for the Katyn crime. These facts are in official records. It's hard to believe the Soviet army was involved in this execution, especially since Nazi allies caused an even worse tragedy for the Polish people. This is the Volhynia Massacre, which many people now try not to remember. At the same time, this event is thoroughly confirmed and documented all over the world. Russian pyramids. If you haven't seen them in person, you've surely heard about the greatness of the Egyptian pyramids on the Giza Plateau. This architectural ensemble, renowned for its magnificence, is considered one of the most monumental. But Russian researchers have proposed an alternative, pointing to the existence of even older pyramids on the territory of Russia, covering areas from the Kola Peninsula to the Black Sea. The first discovery of such pyramid structures took place on the Kola Peninsula in 2001, and their dating indicated an age twice that of the Egyptian counterparts. Subsequent findings confirmed the artificial origin of these pyramids, which were built between 9,000 and 40,000 years ago. In 2010, researchers discovered another ancient pyramid, noting the similarity of construction techniques with Egyptian and Chinese structures. In the Krasnoyarsk region, Sopka Chernaya is an extinct volcano called Pyramid for its three-sided shape and man-made masonry, found to be 1,000 years old. In Rostov-on-Don, there is the Arya Sanctuary, a unique structure that predates the Egyptian pyramids by 1,000 years and was built according to the Golden Ratio principle. Crimea is notably rich, with 7 pyramids discovered in 2001 between Sevastopol and Foros, thought to be 2,000 years older than Egypt's. Their architecture resembles Tibetan and Mexican pyramids, indicating the existence of an ancient advanced civilization. It's hard to believe that the Egyptian pyramids are not as ancient as we were previously told. Such discoveries also confirm that the Egyptians were not the first to create such grand structures. To this day, humanity is still puzzled in trying to understand why people in ancient times built pyramid structures all over the globe. The Litsov family. The Litsov family became a symbol of resilience and survival in extreme conditions. Over many years of living in a remote part of Siberia, they adapted to a life almost completely cut off from the outside world. Going back to the distant 1930s, the Litsovs, excluding the influence of the outside world and its problems, decided to become hermits in the deep taiga. Over the years, their hermit life became a legend. They lacked modern technology, medicine, and comforts of civilization, but compensated with survival skills, natural resources, and age-old knowledge. For decades, they lived in harmony with nature, demonstrating amazing abilities to adapt. The very survival of the Litsov family deep in the taiga is a symbol of human resilience and proof that even in the most difficult conditions, a person can preserve humanity and the spirit of family. The mystery of the cursed table. Have you ever been told about objects shrouded in sinister secrets and curses, the kind around which incredible and mysterious events occur, confusing even the bravest? In this video, we'll explore the story of one such object. Picture the Delta Saloon, a cafe in Virginia City, Nevada, with an antique table displayed under a glass dome and behind a barrier. But why the protection? You might ask, but it's not often you see a cursed table, is it? Yes, that's right. The table is considered cursed because about 170 years ago, in the Faro Casino, where the table first appeared, it brought bad luck. Everyone who sat at it felt like the table attracted misfortune, and everyone who sat at it lost all their money. Because of this, it was even sold, and the buyer was Blackjack. He took the table home and sometimes hosted poker nights with friends, but it didn't bring him luck. After a year, he lost all his savings and in despair, ended his life. Then the table ended up with a new owner, David Lips, but even he and his family couldn't escape the strange cursed power of the table. Tragically, his whole family was found dead at that table one evening. The table, like a cursed ship, passed from hand to hand, bringing only misfortune and tragedy into people's lives. Eventually, it was bought by the owner of the Delta Saloon, where it remains to this day. Currently, the table decorates the establishment's interior and is kept under glass behind a barrier to prevent accidental contact. But it wasn't always like that. A new owner, unaware of the story, put the table out again, and the tragedies continued. Whether there is a curse or it's just a terrible coincidence, unfortunately, we don't know. But one thing is certain. This table, wrapped in sinister stories, continues to disturb and attract with its mystery. And maybe the curse is just a part of our belief in magic and the supernatural? Where did Maya go? Maya left impressive jungle cities, step pyramid temples, a complex writing system, and very precise astronomical calculations. Their calendars remain so accurate they still spark debate today. But by the time the Spanish arrived, only small settlements in the forests remained of the great civilization. No army, power, or temples. What happened? Scientists offer many theories. The most common theory is an ecological disaster. The Maya cut down too many trees, the soil became depleted, and then a drought began. Combined with overpopulation and internal conflicts, this could have led to collapse. There is also a theory about epidemics, and some people talk about civil wars between cities and states. Conspiracy circles even mention an alien trace. The disappearance of an entire culture is strange, but the Maya didn't vanish entirely. Their descendants still live in Guatemala, Mexico, and Belize. They speak Mayan languages, preserve traditions, customs, and costumes. It's just that the state model that we refer to as existing, the Maya existed, the cities became deserted, the power disappeared, and the writing was forgotten over time. When you look at their stone cities covered in moss, you get the feeling that all of this happened quite recently. Like they disappeared into the jungle and will come back one day, not as a tribe, but as a culture with something new to offer the world. Paths for the dead. Archaeologists from the University of Aberdeen have discovered hundreds of previously unknown prehistoric monuments in Ireland, including 5 Stone Age structures used to mark the path of the dead to the afterlife. These discoveries were made in County Wicklow, where the use of LiDAR made it possible to create detailed three-dimensional models of the landscape. The area where the research was conducted was inhabited from the early Neolithic to the late Bronze Age. Scientists found 5 rare, long, narrow cursus structures in Ireland, each 150 to 400 meters long. These structures served as pathways for the dead, guiding souls on their way to the afterlife. Interestingly, 4 out of the 5 cursus are aligned with the cyclical movements of the sun, with 2 pointing to the sunrise on the day of the summer solstice and the other 2 on the day of the autumn equinox. 3 cursus are located near burial complexes, which further supports the theory about their role in funeral processions and the journey of souls to the ancestors. These prehistoric monuments remain some of the most mysterious in Ireland and Great Britain, since no artifacts have been found near them that could provide more clues about their functions. The 2,500-year-old helmet and Dacian treasures. This golden helmet is one of the most famous artifacts of Dacian culture. It dates back to around 450 before Christ. Known as the helmet from Cotafinishti, it is regarded as both an ancient jewelry masterpiece and a symbol of power and ritual strength. Decorated with eyes, snakes, and mythological scenes, it likely belonged to a priest or leader with a sacred role in Dacian society. The helmet appears to stare at foes, causing fear and shielding its wearer. On January 25, 2025, this helmet was stolen in a daring robbery. Several unique items were stolen from the Drenthe Wassenaar Museum in the Netherlands during the Dokia Land of Gold and Silver exhibition, including this helmet and 3 royal Dokian bracelets. All the items came from the National History Museum of Romania. The loss of these artifacts was a real blow to cultural heritage. The Führer's last teeth. When I read about the Argentine bases and Hitler's escape, I always wondered, is there any direct evidence he really died in 1945? In April 2024, the Federal Security Service published a photo that answered this question. The photo displays a jaw officially identified as Hitler's remains, stored in a cigarette box with 9 authentic teeth. French forensic expert Philippe Charlier compared this jaw with X-rays from 1944, and the match is absolute. Moreover, traces of cyanide were found on the metal of the dentures. This confirms the suicide theory. Poison, capsule, gunshot, just like the official reports. It's a strange feeling. For years, we looked for conspiracies and escape legends, but it was much simpler. No tunnels, no doubles, no submarines, just a jawbone, a dusty archive, and decades without publicity. It's as if no one wanted this subject to be put to rest once and for all. Maybe reality just isn't as remarkable as we are, or as the myth is. The flood in ancient Tehuacan. A strange detail was found during the Tehuacan excavations. The houses and temples turned out to be covered with earth, and the nature of this covering did not correspond to the simple accumulation of soil over time. Because of this, a theory even emerged that the city's inhabitants once left it, carefully covering it with earth beforehand, possibly so that their homes would not fall into the hands of some conquerors. For some reason, the author of this theory was not bothered by the oddity of such a decision, which has absolutely no analogs in history. You could burn or destroy it. People have done many things out of spite for the enemy, but to actually bury entire buildings, someone even calculated that it would take more soil to cover them than was used to build the Pyramid of the Sun. Another person calculated that building the Pyramid of the Sun took about 30 years of labor and 20,000 people. There aren't enough large rivers in the area for even the strongest flood to not only inundate the city, but eventually cover it completely with sediment. There are no nearby high mountains that could cause a mudslide. A regular tsunami couldn't have caused this, as the sea is about 400 kilometers away, and the elevation here is around 2 kilometers. During the expedition, archaeologists discovered direct and clear traces of a flood tsunami that came from the Pacific Ocean and had great power. It was powerful enough to leave its mark even in Mexican Teotihuacan. Forgotten rulers of Egypt. Most of us consider Egypt to be an eternal civilization, strong, proud, and independent. But there was a time when it was ruled by outsiders. They were called the Hyksos, which means rulers of foreign lands or shepherd kings. Who they really were is still a matter of debate. The Hyksos invaded Egypt around the 17th century before Christ. They not only destroyed the country, but also conquered it, founded a dynasty, ruled nearly a century, and brought new technologies. They are believed to have introduced the war chariot to Egypt, which transformed warfare strategy in the Middle East. There is also evidence that the Hyksos were the first to actively use bronze and composite weapons in Egyptian territory. Their origin is a mystery. Some believe they came from Canaan, the modern Levant, while others think they were nomadic tribes from Asia. Some researchers say the Hyksos were a mix of traders, warriors, and herders who united during migration and wars, but their pure culture has not survived. We know about them mainly from Egyptian sources, which means there's a strong tone of hostility. After expelling the Hyksos, Egyptians started the 18th dynasty, the same era Tutankhamun lived in. Perhaps hatred for their oppressors helped Egypt regain its power, yet some Hyksos achievements endured and became Egyptian tradition. I'm always struck by those moments when the victors don't just forget the defeated, but also take the very best from them. The idol of the Gorbanovsky peat bog. The Gorbanovsky peat bog, located in the Urals, is an outstanding monument of the Paleolithic and Bronze Age, and was the first archaeological discovery of its kind in Russia. Where the modern swamp is now, there used to be a lake, on the shore of which people built platforms, leaving behind dwellings, tools, and vessels. Over time, the area turned swampy, but people still settled there, as shown by found charcoal fragments. Among the unique artifacts found here was a boomerang, a wooden idol carved from a pine trunk, with an unusually long body and a detailed head, which makes it different from other finds. This idol, found under the excavation wall, is now in the Museum of Nizhny Tagil. Also, a primitively crafted idol head and a simplified body idol were found. Both are now in the State Historical Museum collection. These artifacts demonstrate special care in the making of everyday objects and precision in conveying their shape. Anthropomorphic images, however, are made roughly and schematically, which may be related to ancient beliefs about depicting the spirits of the dead. It is believed that because of the fear of connecting a spirit to its image, wooden sculptures were made symbolic and deliberately unrealistic. This approach to creating human images indicates deeply rooted traditions and beliefs of the ancient inhabitants of the Urals, living mummies. In 1972, the mountain peaks of the Andes in South America became the site of an astonishing discovery. At an altitude of about 3,600 meters, a crashed plane was found that had gone missing in 1941. The most astonishing part wasn't finding the plane, but the state of the passengers' bodies. Thanks to the cold and dry conditions at that altitude, the bodies of the deceased turned into so-called living mummies. Their skin was dried out, yet remained surprisingly intact and retained signs of life. This phenomenon is caused by the unique climatic conditions of the mountainous area: low temperatures, dry air, and ultraviolet radiation at high altitude. The mummies that were found became subjects of study for scientists from different countries. They analyzed the condition of the bodies, trying to understand the processes that led to such unusual preservation. By then, the disaster was forgotten, and victims' relatives could finally learn their loved one's fate and say goodbye. The results shocked the scientists. The long mysterious mummy, kept for years at the University of Warsaw, finally received a logical explanation. It was previously believed that this was a male priest named Kor Jikuti, who lived in the 1st century before Christ. However, in 2015, Polish researchers decided to perform a computed tomography scan and discovered that it was actually a woman. Moreover, scientists thought that she was pregnant at the time of her death. The scans reportedly reveal fetal bones, a small hand, and a leg. This generated major scientific interest, as it could be history's first discovery of a pregnant mummy. Researchers also observed skull deformations on the mysterious lady and proposed aggressive cancer as the cause of death. But doubts emerged over time. Radiologist Sakar Selim from Cairo quickly noted there was no anatomical evidence of a fetus and logically questioned why the bones vanished. but the baby's soft tissues remained. Archaeologist Kamila Bralinskaya and her team recently revisited the case and reanalyzed over 1,400 computed tomography scans. 4 independent groups worked on it, and they all came to the same conclusion. There was no pregnancy. The fetus was actually tissue clumps left from irregularities in the mummification process. The same applies to the alleged cancer. The skull was damaged when the brain was removed, which often happens with careless embalming. So the mystery lady remains a mystery once again, but now without the sensational headlines. This story shows how important it is to double-check sensational scientific discoveries. The Ravensbrück Women's Concentration Camp, located in Germany, was established in 1939 and was the largest women's concentration camp in the Nazi system. Tens of thousands of women of various nationalities were held here, subjected to torture, forced labor, and horrifying medical experiments. Between 1942 and 1943, cruel experiments were conducted on prisoners in the Ravensbrück concentration camp, during which deep cuts were made on their calves. Tetanus, streptococcus, and gas gangrene bacteria were then rubbed into the wounds. Additionally, crushed glass and wood shavings were introduced into the wounds to simulate battlefield injuries. The purpose of these inhumane experiments conducted by German doctors was to study treatment methods that could be used to treat wounded soldiers at the front. Archaeological excavations carried out on the territory of the Ravensbrück camp in recent years have uncovered personal belongings of prisoners, providing new information about the fate of the inmates. Among the artifacts found were jewelry, pieces of fabric, shoes, and personal hygiene items that the prisoners had hidden, in the hope of preserving at least some connection to their former lives and humanity. These small moments, though minor amid the tragedy, reveal much about the spirit, hope, and despair of the women at Ravensbrück. The findings about children who stayed in the camp with their mothers or were born in captivity are especially valuable. Toys, children's shoes, and clothing found during the excavations highlight the inhumanity of the regime, which spared not even the smallest ones. Excavations on the territory of Ravensbrück are ongoing, and each new finding helps to supplement and clarify the historical picture of the camp. An ancient receipt in Jerusalem. Imagine the ancient city of Jerusalem more than 2,000 years ago, a time when the Roman Empire ruled the world. On Old Jerusalem's main street, scientists discovered an unusual stone marked with strange symbols, words. It turned out to be an ancient receipt, like a paper check from our time. Archaeologists were thrilled because this is the first such item from those distant times found right in Jerusalem. Why is this so important? Imagine what secrets this receipt could reveal. It could reveal and tell us about how people lived, what they bought, and what their customs were. As Professor Anna Evans reports, this is a simple item, but it reflects the daily life of the ancient inhabitants of Jerusalem. It is exactly these small things that give us the opportunity to look into the past and see how our distant ancestors lived. This stone tablet was found in an old tunnel dug back in the 19th century. It was carved from pieces of limestone that were once part of an ancient burial chest called an ossuary. Professor David Cohen, an expert on the history of ancient Jerusalem, says this discovery gives us valuable information about the commercial activity and economy of Jerusalem at that time. The names and numbers on the tablet suggest financial transactions, possibly early accounting and trade. Each new discovery in the city of David helps us better understand the history of this holy city. Arata, the Sumerian Atlantis. When people talk about Atlantis, they remember ancient Greece, where the Greeks engaged in philosophy and contemplated the ideal state. One of them was Platon. He was the one who described the myth of a distant land where people lived happily, using the favor of the gods for their own benefit. As for the Sumerians, they also had a myth about a distant land where people lived in wealth. No, it's not Dilmun, now Bahrain. Instead, a more mysterious land is described, possibly the origin of the Sumerian language. This lesser-known myth, unlike Gilgamesh, still has enough details to reconstruct the general story. Arata is mainly mentioned in passing in Sumerian texts. Arata is described as a place to the east of Elam, where the army travels on foot. It is indirectly mentioned that a fleet could also reach it, but it is not used. This land itself is described as a mountainous region, where the inhabitants are well acquainted with metallurgy and mining. They also worshiped the same gods and spoke the same language as the Sumerians. Some researchers located Arata in Transcaucasia and linked it to Urartu, but Urartu's people called their land Biaini, and Assyrians created the name Urartu. The Sumerians clearly point to a location east of their land, likely in Iran, and specifically in the mountains. This raises the question, who is the culture of Arata linked to, since no monuments from this country have been discovered yet? And although this may seem unscientific, it is worth identifying Arata with the Bactria Margiana archaeological complex. Notice how many artifacts are similar to Sumerian ones. Woolen clothing in their style and large eyes like statues in Iraq. The death of Alexander. Alexander the Great conquered Palmyra by the age of 30. His army marched from Greece to India. He did not lose a single battle. He destroyed empires and created new ones. But in 323 before Christ, at his peak, he suddenly dies in Babylon at just 32. What happened? Many theories exist. Persians claimed it was punishment for desecrating King Cyrus's tomb, while Macedonians thought he just wore himself out. Drunkenness, illness, exhaustion. Roman historians believed he was poisoned. There is a theory that it was malaria, or West Nile fever, or an autoimmune disease, or a slow-acting poison brought from the east. But the biggest question is not the cause of death, but what happened afterwards, where his body is. Some say the sarcophagus was taken to Egypt. Others say it wasn't. Its whereabouts are unknown after that. No tomb, inscription, or official burial was almost unthinkable in the ancient world. A person like that should have been deified, but instead, there's only silence. Some suggest that the body was preserved, deliberately hidden to avoid fueling a cult, to deny legitimacy to his heirs, or because his death was part of a conspiracy and someone wanted to erase all traces. Sometimes the scariest secret isn't how someone lived, but how he left. Alexander's legacy is a city named after him and a myth, but no grave or marker, just speculation, making his death even more legendary and unsettling. Locally, a 270-million-year-old skull. In the collection of the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, a fossilized skull was discovered that belonged to an ancient ancestor of amphibians. Its approximate age is 270 million years. Scientists describe the skull as a new species of proto-amphibian, named Kermitopus gratis in honor of the famous Muppet frog Kermit. One of the students at George Washington University emphasized the importance of using popular names to draw attention to scientific discoveries. He noted that the name Kermit is perfect for describing an ancient amphibian, linking it to modern representatives of this class of animals. The skull was found by paleontologist Nicholas Houghton during field research in Texas in an area known as the Red Beds. This area, dating back to the early Permian period, contains many fossils, including remains of ancient reptiles and amphibians. After its discovery in 1984, the skull remained in museum collections for decades, until it was studied by Arjan Mann, who singled it out from other specimens for detailed examination. The joint efforts of researchers helped establish that the discovered skull belongs to a new genus of ancient amphibians, a unique type of DNA in alien mummies. Three-fingered mummies have been discovered in Peru, which are claimed by documentary filmmakers Serena Disi and Michael Mazzola to be something beyond our world. They announced the presentation of unique evidence of the existence of humanoids. Documentary filmmakers say the remains found in a mountain mine are genuine and have DNA unlike any known forms. American scientists in Mexico and Peru conducted studies that contradict the Peruvian authorities' claim that the mummies are merely a tourist attraction. The filmmakers say the discovery could rewrite human history, rivaling the significance of finding the Shroud of Christ or the Ark of the Covenant. The filmmakers believe scientific DNA analysis is needed to understand these beings, over 1,000 years old, whose DNA is 30% unknown, suggesting possible genetic manipulation. The film suggests that the mummies could be evidence of a new species, or even of extraterrestrial origin. The creators plan to show images and research results live from the laboratory, calling for a serious scientific analysis of the discovered remains. technology. People usually mention the V-1 and V-2 rockets when discussing the Third Reich's technological developments. And indeed, these were the first ballistic missiles in history that struck cities and possibly set the direction for the entire future space program. But that's just what went public, what the world saw. At the same time, work was underway in closed facilities on projects that are still debated to this day. One of the most discussed is the Honebu project. These were developments of disc-shaped flying vehicles, shaped like flying saucers. According to descriptions, it was a machine with a gravitational engine, capable of vertical takeoff and reaching speeds unattainable by the aviation of that time. Schematics, signatures, and internal drawings all exist. Maybe they were just concepts or more. One of the key figures in this field is Victor Schauberger, an Austrian engineer who worked with vortex flows. His idea was that energy could be obtained not by burning fuel, but by controlling the natural flows of water and air, a vortex as a source of power. He believed that nature had already invented the perfect form of movement, and that humans just needed to learn how to copy it. The Nazis knew this and apparently used it. These projects stood out because they didn't resemble frontline weapons or aim to turn the war around. Instead, they appeared intended for transition, not victory. It's hard to explain this feeling, but it's there, as if someone thought these machines would be needed after 1945, not during that year. Most of these developments never reached testing, but their existence shows the scale of ambition and desire to push beyond limits. These drawings, diagrams, and ideas literally reflect a drive to find an escape when all other paths were blocked. The Sword of Islam. This sword, known as the Sword of Islam, was created as a symbolic ceremonial weapon and was presented to Benito Mussolini in 1937 in Tripoli. The goal was to demonstrate the support of his regime by the Muslims of Libya, which was then under Italian control. Mussolini readily accepted this gift and even used it in propaganda, presenting himself as a defender of Islam, an attempt to strengthen Italy's influence in North Africa and the Middle East. The sword's lavish design, inlays, engravings, and oriental motifs highlighted its role as a political symbol rather than a weapon. However, the fate of this sword turned out to be dramatic in July 1943, when Mussolini's residence in the Rocca delle Camminate was destroyed and looted by fighters of the Italian resistance movement. The sword vanished without a trace. It's still unclear if it was destroyed, hidden, or taken. The Sword of Islam is a rare historical example of a weapon used not for war, but as an ideological tool and artifact that vanished with the fall of the regime that sought to use it to gain power. A canopy of gold. Mexican scientists recently spent 9.5 million pesos to acquire 3 rare late 16th century documents. This investment opened a new chapter in history, providing valuable information about the period when the Spanish arrived in the lands of modern-day Mexico. These are the codices of San Andrés Tetepilco, created at the turn of the 16th and 17th centuries, which vividly illustrate the events of that time. Covering the reign of Izcoatl, Tenochtitlan's 4th ruler and founder of the Aztec Empire, through Hernán Cortés's arrival. These rare codices were purchased for the National Library of Anthropology and History. With the help of individuals and organizations, a 9.5 million peso payment returned them from private to public ownership. Analysis showed that the codices were made from amate, traditional bark paper, using natural dyes, which highlights the high craftsmanship of their creators. The authenticity of the documents was confirmed thanks to joint work with experts from various scientific institutions. The San Andrés Tetepilco codices are notable for uniquely blending indigenous traditions with European influence. They contain texts in the Nahuatl and Spanish languages, written in the Latin alphabet. This treasure provides an opportunity to delve deeper into the study and understanding of a key period in the region's history. What surprised the archaeologists? An untouched burial mound. The 2.5-meter-high, 50-meter diameter mound concealed a stone crypt with a perimeter support wall. The crypt itself was made of flat slabs and widened slightly toward the top. It was covered with timber, on top of which stone slabs were laid. The crypt's entrance was on the south side. accessed by a long corridor where the deceased were placed before sealing with stones. The archaeologists were fortunate. The untouched burial mound will yield a wealth of valuable information. It is known to date back to the 4th century before Christ. Inside the crypt, the remains of 6 people were found. They were buried at different times, which means this is a family crypt. Judging by the rich burial inventory, these people belonged to the upper class and apparently were tribal leaders. The clothes of the buried were richly decorated with golden plaques, and it might be possible to reconstruct the outfit of one of them. During later burials, earlier bones were moved, so only the most recently buried had their outfit details correctly positioned. In total, more than 100 gold items were found. The disappearance of Atlantis. Atlantis is not just an ancient legend. It is a cultural phantom that still influences minds, dreams, and even science to this day. Platon described it in remarkable detail: a vast island with an advanced civilization, strong army, and intricate canals. He claimed that Atlantis was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, opposite the Atlas Mountains, and sank underwater as a result of a massive earthquake in just one day, around 9,500 before Christ. Since then, more than 11,000 years have passed, and we are still searching for it. In Crete, Santorini, Cuba, Brazil, Iceland, and the Atlantic depths, scientists have suggested many theories, from the Thera disaster to a misremembered sunken Sahara. The problem is that we don't have a single direct archaeological proof. No artifacts, no remains, no genetic trace. Science can't fully disprove Atlantis' existence. Its influence is what's most surprising. The legend of Atlantis inspired philosophical schools, occult theories, Nazi mystics, pseudosciences, conspiracy theorists, and science fiction writers. Atlantis became a symbol of the lost golden age. It fascinates us because it's not just a vanished land. It's the idea that once we were more than we are now. Sometimes I think Atlantis isn't a sunken island, but a reflection of our dreams. We want to believe people were once stronger, smarter, better, and until we know the truth, this story will keep resurfacing. The 700-year-old alchemist is alive. Nicolas Flamel's name has long been shrouded in mystery and legend. Born in the 1330s in Pontoise near Paris, he lost his parents young, but, due to a good education, became a successful scribe in the capital. His offices with copyists brought in a steady income, and his clients were among the wealthy townspeople. The real mystery began in 1357, when Flamel acquired an ancient manuscript from a wandering merchant, the Book of the Sage Abraham. The Book of the Sage was written in Aramaic. To decipher it, he traveled to Spain, where, according to legend, he learned the secret of the Philosopher's Stone, a substance that turns metals into gold and grants immortality. In 1368, Flamel married a wealthy widow, Pernelle, which made him even richer. Together, the couple actively donated to churches, hospitals, and those in need. After Pernelle died in 1402, Nicholas's generosity only increased, and he remained remarkably vigorous even in his old age, which led to rumors that Flamel had truly created the elixir of eternal life. Flamel died in 1418, but rumors of him faking his death continued, claiming sightings in India, the Ottoman Empire, and later Paris catacombs. It was said that he and Pernelle were alive, hiding and continuing to practice alchemy. Skeptics claim that the story is a 17th century invention, and that the Book of Hieroglyphic Figures was created by London publishers. But interest in Flamel only grew in the 19th century. A man impersonated him, offering immortality for 300,000 francs, and his tombstone was found in a Paris shop where it was used as a cutting board. Today, the tombstone is kept in the Cluny Museum. Flamel's house on Montmorency Street is Paris's oldest residential building. After Harry Potter, interest in Flamel flared up with renewed vigor. What if he's really alive, just not in a hurry to remind people about himself? Odessa Catacombs. Huge underground labyrinths are hidden beneath the city of Odessa. 1813 is considered the first year people entered it, as that's the year written on the wall. There was a plague epidemic in the city during those years. It's possible that the catacombs served as a shelter for local residents during World War II, when the city was occupied from 1941 to 1944. These dark maze-like dungeons became a secret refuge for partisans. Imagine a network of underground passages stretching over 1,000 kilometers, where you could get lost like in a giant anthill. It was here in the darkness and cold that the partisans set up their secret bases. They lived in these underground tunnels, planned attacks on the enemy, and even printed leaflets calling people to resist. The catacombs were the perfect place for covert struggle. The enemy couldn't easily find or capture them. The partisans used their knowledge of the underground labyrinths to shock the enemy, suddenly appearing where they weren't expected and disappearing without a trace. Although dark, damp, and difficult to live in, the catacombs became a symbol of Odesa's unbroken spirit thanks to the partisans' courage and ingenuity. In fact, the history of these labyrinths is so ancient that it has even grown over with certain legends, one of which says that deep in the catacombs lives a short man covered in hair. To survive, he feeds on bats. An 11th century pocket computer. A historian from the United Kingdom, Federico Gigante, discovered one of the oldest astrolabes from the 11th century with inscriptions in Arabic and Hebrew in an Italian museum. This instrument, used to measure angles and star positions, became a key find at the Verona Museum. This artifact is so multifunctional that by modern standards it could easily be considered a pocket computer. Federico Gigante came across the device while browsing the museum's catalog online and requested additional information. But the object hasn't been examined yet. Upon arriving at the museum, the scientist found both Arabic and faint Hebrew inscriptions on the astrolabe, which she believes shows scientific exchange among Arab, Jewish, and Christian worlds. For centuries, research has shown that the astrolabe could have been made in Al-Andalus, the Muslim region in Spain. Muslim prayers and Hebrew lines have been preserved on the instrument, highlighting its cultural and religious significance. The similarity of the discovered astrolabe to Byzantine and early European models supports the hypothesis of its Iberian origin. This unique artifact is believed to have first entered the collection of the Italian aristocrat Ludovico Mascardo in the 17th century, and later it passed to the Maniscalchi family, who in 1990 founded a museum to preserve their private collection. An unusual resident of Tokyo. In 2006, an unusual discovery was made in Tokyo that shocked both the local population and the global community. In one of the city's apartments, a man discovered that strange things were happening in his home. Food was disappearing, and objects were changing their location. The most surprising thing was that all the doors and windows always stayed closed. After installing a video surveillance system, the man discovered something amazing. A certain woman would come out of a large upper cabinet and take his food and belongings when the owner was not home. It turned out that she had been living in that cabinet for several years. When she was apprehended, the woman explained that she had no permanent place to live and decided to settle in the cabinet when the apartment turned out to be empty. She hid when the owner was home and came out when he left. The tomb of the last king of the Anunnaki, Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, is one of the most important and mysterious figures in the history of ancient Mesopotamia. He became the central figure in an ancient epic poem and deeply influenced culture and religion. Gilgamesh, whose name remains mysterious, was a remarkable ruler whose achievements inspired many myths and legends. During his reign, Gilgamesh was known as a great builder, strategist, and warrior. He is credited with creating large-scale urban residents from threats and disasters. Legends say these walls were so impressive that even the gods helped build them. In addition, the reign of Gilgamesh is associated with a period of economic prosperity and cultural flourishing, which made Uruk an important center of the ancient world. Gilgamesh became a central mythological figure due to the Epic of Gilgamesh, which recounts his exploits. This literary monument, found in the library of the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal in Nineveh, describes the journeys and adventures of Gilgamesh, his struggle with supernatural forces of nature, as well as his quest for immortality. This poem is not only a major source for studying ancient Mesopotamian culture, but also reflects eternal human aspirations and experiences. Archaeological findings confirm the historicity of Gilgamesh. During the excavations in Uruk and other Mesopotamian cities, many artifacts were found, including cuneiform tablets with texts and inscriptions mentioning his name. A particularly significant find is the tomb that, according to some theories, may belong to Gilgamesh himself. If this discovery is confirmed, it could become key to understanding the historical figure of Gilgamesh. Among archaeological finds, notable texts describe the Anunnaki deities, who were central in ancient Mesopotamian mythology. The Anunnaki, descendants of sky god Anu and earth goddesses, were linked to humanity's creation and fate. The theory of the Anunnaki's influence goes beyond Mesopotamia, connecting them to other ancient civilizations and extraterrestrial visitors from Nibiru. Comparing the Nibiru theories with other catastrophe theories, such as the Great Flood or the fall of the Tunguska meteorite, demonstrates the wide range of hypotheses about the origin and development of humanity. The discovery of Gilgamesh's tomb could shed light on many aspects of the life and reign of this legendary king, as well as confirm or refute the numerous myths about him. The Florentine diamond is a sparkling gem, the legendary Florentine diamond, also known as the Austrian yellow. It weighed 137.45 carats, and it impressed not only with its size but also with its unusual yellowish hue. Legend says the diamond first belonged to the Medici family, then passed to the Habsburg dynasty, and became part of the imperial regalia. The Florentine was long kept in Vienna's royal treasury and seen as one of Europe's most valuable gems. After Austria-Hungary collapsed in 1918, it disappeared. The stone was reportedly taken to South America, and according to rumors, later cut into smaller diamonds to ease selling and conceal its origin. To this day, no one knows where the Florentine's parts are, if it was truly divided. Its history remains mysterious, and the diamond symbolizes the lost splendor of European dynasties. It may still be in a private safe today, awaiting its return. The superhighway of the ancient Maya, and now we are heading for an adventure straight into the jungles of Guatemala. Archaeologists have spent 8 years uncovering secrets of the ancient Maya civilization. Fasten your seatbelts. We have an exciting flight into the past ahead of us. Remember how, as a child, you loved to hide in the park among the trees and bushes? But what if someone hid an entire city? That's exactly the kind of discovery scientists made, using a super cool technology called LIDAR. It lets you see through the jungle, just like you can see through water in a swimming pool. Archaeologists didn't just find one city, they discovered an entire network of 400 Maya cities connected by roads. Imagine it like a huge treasure map where all the islands are connected by bridges, and not just roads, but real superhighways. Researchers think these superhighways were massive, wider than our widest highways, and illuminated by moonlight. It's interesting, isn't it? All of this is thanks to a layer of white plaster, which shows that it exists just like in this city. Richard Hansen, the lead archaeologist, calls this network the world's first superhighway system. He says that these roads were like a web, connecting all the cities into one big system. And although our Maya friends didn't use wheels or domesticated animals for transportation, it is believed that they traveled these roads on foot. Can you imagine how they traveled from city to city, walking many miles along these superhighways? Coptic Handbook. This unique folio dates back to the 7th-8th centuries AD and was obtained from Upper Egypt of a strange kind. The 20-page parchment containing spells for all occasions was unequivocally called by researchers a handbook of ritual power. It is generally believed that this document was compiled by members of some ancient proto-Christian community or sect. The book can be described as a manual of ancient spells and rituals. It opens with a lengthy series of intricate prayers, followed by illustrations, spells, and words of power. However, this document cannot instill fear or terror in an ordinary person, especially since Coptic rituals and ceremonies were simple and mostly domestic. For example, the reader was offered instructions on how to cure leptospirosis, which was quite common at the time. You just had to recite a prayer over 2 nails and then drive the enchanted nails into the doorframe. Since 1981, this folio has been kept in one of the Australian museums. Previously, it was owned by the well-known collector Mikhail Fackelman. No one knows the artifact's earlier history. Hollow Earth, the final door. If someone had told me about this 10 years ago, I would have just chuckled. Vikings, Antarctica, the underground world, Nazis entering the planet. All this seemed like wild science fiction. But as I explored documents, diaries, and declassified reports, I realized it was part of an ideological construct, not just nonsense. One theory claims the Nazis believed in a hollow earth, an inner world called Agartha, where an ancient civilization was preserved. Interpretations vary, but the core idea remains. This is said to be a place of power untouched by destruction or time. Archives mention an Antarctic expedition, vanished planes, and pilots describing a mysterious glow rising from below, not the sky. Some ideas originated in the Ahnenerbe. Others emerged later among those fleeing. Who created them doesn't matter. What matters is how these myths fit the worldview. Not as a fairy tale like the Templar treasure refuge. The Templars were not just knights. It was a medieval financial empire with castles, ships, a treasury, banks, and its own transfer system. Philip IV of France owed them a large sum, then abruptly outlawed the order. They are arrested, tried, tortured, and their treasures vanish. When the Paris Templar headquarters was seized, no valuables, no gold, artifacts, or documents were found. The treasury was empty. This sparked panic and rumors. Where did everything go and what were people saying? Hours before the raid, a caravan left Paris, delivering gold to La Rochelle's port, where ships took it in an unknown direction. Since then, one of the most persistent historical quests has begun to find the Templar gold. Some seek it in Scotland, others on Oak Island in Canada, where a clever trapped cache was supposedly built. Some believe the treasures were sent to Switzerland and formed the basis of the future banking system. Some theorize the gold was hidden in Jerusalem and is still guarded today. We don't even know roughly how much was lost. Given the order's scale, it could have been thousands of kilograms of gold, relics, documents, or political secrets, all vanished instantly without a trace. Personally, I think this is not just a story about treasures. It's a story about a power that became too independent and was destroyed. And the gold, it disappeared along with the influence, and maybe it's still at work, just in different hands now. Archaeologists have discovered a 5,000-year-old Bronze Age fortress, the first of its kind, in the forests of Neaps County, Romania, and modern LIDAR technology helped them with this. Thanks to drones equipped with laser scanners, it was possible to see through the dense vegetation and get a clear image of the structure that had been hidden from the human eye for centuries. The fortress dates to the transition from the Neolithic to the Bronze Age, when people began building fortified settlements. The LiDAR showed it was a well-designed, powerful structure. The moat stretched for hundreds of meters. The earthen ramparts and the strategically advantageous location on a height all indicate serious knowledge and organization of labor among the ancient builders. Modern technology is essential to fully grasp the scale and structure of ancient monuments. These are not just ruins. They are traces of a complex and well-thought-out civilization that we are only beginning to rediscover. Dr. Parker's Dental Show, and now let's talk about the man who changed dentistry. Meet Edgard Randolph Parker, born in 1872 in the small town of Tynemouth Creek, New Brunswick. As a child, Edgard showed incredible resourcefulness when he decided to become a poultry farmer at the age of 9. Though the plan failed, Edgard stayed optimistic. As a teen, he tried being a merchant, but his father opposed it and sold his wagon. Edgard was so upset that he decided to go sailing with his uncle, who owned several ships. But fate brought him to medicine when he was injured and ended up in a hospital in Buenos Aires. Inspired by the work of the medical staff, he decided to become a dentist. At the age of 17, Edgard entered the New York College of Dentistry and even tried to start practicing, which led to his expulsion from the college. Edgard didn't give up on his dream. He kept studying and eventually earned his diploma in Philadelphia. After becoming a dentist, he moved to Canada and launched an ad campaign promoting painless tooth extraction to attract clients. With the help of his invention, Hydrocaine. Soon, Edgard became a traveling dentist, pulling teeth without pain. After moving to New York, he met William Beebe, a former circus worker who suggested organizing a theatrical medical show. The show started with a talk on oral hygiene, followed by Edgard painlessly pulling a volunteer's tooth. All the spectators were thrilled. Soon, he had an entire network of offices and an income of $3 million a year. Edgard may have been more of a showman, but he did a lot of good. He conducted free checkups, offered installment plans for services, and organized lectures about caring for teeth and gums. That's how one enterprising guy turned dentistry into a real show. If you want to learn more interesting stories from our past and about new archaeological discoveries, then subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everyone.